Yorkshire.
Power up.
We were very, very proud to have John Romero deliver a wonderful keynote speech this afternoon, and I'm sure he has left you wanting to hear much, much more. So we're very grateful to have Ben Maxwell here from Edge Magazine, who's going to interview John Romero and delve a little deeper. Welcome on stage, please, Ben and John.
Hi, here we are again. Well, I'm a new addition now. So, yeah, as explained, I'm Ben from Edge. I'm the writer on the magazine. Everyone knows who you are.
All right.
So, yeah. So thanks a lot for coming, everyone. So I wanted to start with a little anecdote about Doom. I bonded a lot with my dad when we were killing each other in deathmatch. And he maybe could be criticized. Yeah, it's the best way to establish a father-son relationship. He could maybe be criticized for letting a 12-year-old play Doom. My mum certainly did some of that. But, you know, I've grown up mostly a reasonable human being. We were playing Wolfenstein a long time before that, and there were just these discs at the back, handwritten discs. I don't think it was a legitimate copy. I'm really sorry.
Shareware,
Yeah,
so it's okay.
Well, I think it was more than the first chapter. But, yeah.
Oh, well.
Anyway, you know, it just said Doom on it, handwritten, and I didn't pay it any mind. And then I saw a feature on Doom, saw this game, couldn't believe that a game could look like that. Like, how is that even possible? Got Dad to install it. And we just, you know, didn't look back from there, and we just gained this insatiable appetite for first-person shooters thereafter. So, you know, that's one story among many, I'm sure, for lots of people who grew up with Doom or have experienced Doom. How does it feel to be, like, knowing something you helped create has had such a profound impact on the video game industry and just culture at large?
Well, it's cool.
Yeah.
You know, we were just trying to make the coolest game that we could even imagine, and we didn't look really beyond that. It was like, we're going to make this game. It's going to be really cool. You know, we told everybody what it was going to be like, and then after that game was done, we're going to make another game, and then we're going to make another game. And always, this game has to be better than what we just made, and the next game will be better than what we're making right now. And that was our mindset the whole time. And we didn't ever think that, oh, what we're doing right now is actually going to matter for decades. Like, we didn't think about that. We just thought about, we're just going to make this game really great, and then we'll know how to make the next game better. So it's pretty cool to look and, you know, kind of see that the shooters have influenced a ton of people that wanted to make shooters, and kind of take the designs that we had made and kind of splinter off and do other things with it. Tactical shooters and the competitive shooters and just esports and all that stuff. It's really amazing to see where it's gone. I mean, we're happy to see it. You know, at the very beginning, I was really excited about, you know, Doom when we had come out with that. And I wanted to play more games like Doom. So when we came out with Doom, that's why I immediately started working on Heretic with Raven, because then I could be working on Doom 2, they're working on Heretic, I got another game to play that I didn't actually make the whole thing and like give it away. And so that was, you know, I wanted to see more. And so the next year in '95, when Dark Forces came out, and they were copying the Doom engine and stuff, it was just awesome to play all these games that were influenced by Doom.
I mean, it was such a huge hit for someone who was very young, and that kind of success can derail careers, and certainly has done. How do you stay creatively motivated after, you know, changing the world?
Just how can I do something else innovative and better? That's about it. You know, thinking about what is the next thing that I want to play that I haven't played yet, and that I think if I like that, maybe other people will like it as well. So that's kind of what I think about every time I'm going to make a game, and every game comes about by some random direction or situation. A game design happens, and then if we're excited enough about it, then we just make it, and they're all different.
Mm-hmm. So, I mean, Doom has become, obviously lots of people are involved, but Doom's become kind of synonymous with John Romero. Is that association ever anything other than positive? Has it ever felt like a bit of an albatross to have that?
No, it's great. And if people want to know why, why is your name associated with Doom? I think it's just because of how involved I was in making the game. It wasn't just the owning the company. It wasn't just the game design. It wasn't just making the levels or the tools or programming everything that happened in the game. It was like all of that stuff together. I was more involved, I think, than some of the other people, just because I hit all these different areas of the game development. That it was like, that game is me, basically. And with other games, I wasn't as fully involved as I was with Doom. So I think that it just reflects more of my involvement.
And I mean, obviously you were a confident designer and you were confident in what you were creating, but did your confidence change in light of the success of Doom? Did it sort of, buoy your feelings towards development?
No, not really. I mean, I've been making games for so long. Doom was game number 91.
Sure.
So I'd made a lot of games, and so I was used to making them, and we kept on making better and better games. So it was just like, but if I can take what I know, do the next step, then I'm hoping that that's good too, and just kind of go in steps from there.
Uh-huh. I mean, you recently created another Doom level, and it went down really well. Lots of people were very excited about it. How did you feel about the response to that level?
I thought that was pretty nuts. It was like, I called it a hit single. Like if I had put out a song for some reason and it was a hit. I did E1M8B and E1M4B a few months later. And it was just like, I just wanted to make another level, with E1M4. But with E1M8, it was just a getting back into level design and creativity. And to change, basically, what if I did make E1M8? And it was really fun making it. It was really fast. It was really easy. But it was like natural. It was very natural to make that level. It wasn't hard at all. It was just like coming up with something really cool, but kind of staying within the constraints of episode 1's texture set and items and monsters. And that was actually the hardest part, was trying to stay within those constraints. But it was really fun to make it.
I dabbled with WADs trying to make them, but I got lost in all the vertexes and splines, and they were terrible. I did try and make a level of my school once, but I think I got as far as the assembly hall. It was quite easy, just a large rectangle.
Yeah.
And then some of the other shapes were more
a lot of people do their
Stop
offices in their schools.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, obviously you've just said it wasn't a difficult process designing that level, but it must have been an interesting experience going back to old tools and tools that you built, and thinking about Doom level in the context of the career that has come since then. How is it sort of putting those gloves back on and having your additional experience to look at the design as you went?
Well, it was I had to go back to Doom's design consistency. Like, I needed to make something that was consistent with what was already there. I couldn't make something that came from an alien planet as E1M8. So I needed to stay, keep the design consistency with the level increasing difficulties and the design sensibilities of the original game. And also I used Doom Builder 2, which I didn't write. I wrote the stuff, the original tools were written on Next Step computers. So I was using someone else's, so I really had to spend, just hours learning how to use Doom Builder 2, which is an amazing tool, so much better than the one I had written. That made it really fun and really easy to make the level. But it was very easy to go back into it, and it was really a lot of limiting what I was doing because of what was already there.
And there's a great deal of nostalgia at the moment in sort of AAA game development, right down to indie stuff, and just this desire to bring back classic game ideas, classic feelings, I guess, game feelings. Why do you think that nostalgia has bubbled up now?
Probably because gameplay has changed. With the popularity of the console and the controller, gameplay, game design has moved towards the controller or oriented design. So that means that you can't do crazy twitch movements that you can on a PC with a mouse. With mouse and keyboard, it feels unlimited, the speed and accuracy that you get from that versus a controller. So game designs have started, because there's so many consoles out there and so much more money to be made on consoles, that the designs have gone towards a controller-centric design pattern. So there's been a lot of design, experimentation over the years. What would be a really cool game with a controller, and not have stuff behind you that makes you want to do a 180 because you can't. So, and putting a button to do a 180 doesn't feel right, even though people do put them in there. It's just like, oh, I just somehow magically flipped. So that's why you have games like Gears of War. You have cover systems and a bunch of other stuff that kind of slows the player down. And we had slowed the player down in Quake as well, and it was not because we didn't like how fast Doom was. It was because it took so long to make the levels in Quake that we couldn't make them as big as we wanted them to. So if you slow the player down, it takes longer for the player to move through the level. And so, levels can get done in a reasonable amount of time.
Does the kind of the inherently flawed nature of controllers that you just described then, does that frustrate you as a game designer, that's become more popular than?
Not really. I mean, it's just, I just won't play it. It's like, okay, this isn't that fun. I don't need to get mad at and yell about the game. It's just like, well, I want to play something that has the control that I like in it.
But what about when you're creating an experience for somebody else and you know that the market favors a controller that doesn't support perhaps the velocity that you'd prefer? Or
well, I don't make console games, so
sure. Yeah. But even on PC, people just the Xbox controller is becoming incredibly popular. The PS4's now got the DualShock. Sorry, it's got Steam support.
There's still a bunch of games that use the mouse and keyboard like as like Quake did. So I don't feel like everything has changed. I know that if there's a PC 3D game that's first person, there's a lot of, there's a high percentage chance that it's going to feel good when you play it. And it's okay that if the game is like a stealth sniper type game, I don't need to move fast. I love sniper games. So, as long as I have the really good precision mouse control, then I'm super happy.
Okay. So Doom felt like a very rebellious creation at the time. And obviously it was controversial, and, there's lots of things said about its ability to cause violence, and I was 12. I haven't killed anyone, so clearly that's disproven.
Tens of millions of other people haven't either.
Well, sure, yeah. And I've still got lots of life left, so it may yet manifest in some way. But not tonight.
It's because you're kids.
You're all safe. But do you still feel the need to that kind of that hunger to make something that creates waves like that anymore? Now that you're older, more mature, mostly. And a more experienced developer.
Well, we weren't trying to make waves. We're just trying to make a really great game. So if waves are made, it's everybody else deciding that waves are going to happen. But when I make a game, I try and make the best game that I can with whatever the idea is. So we're about to come out with a game called Gunman Taco Truck. And it's not a shooter, it's a combination of 3 different kinds of games all in one. And it's super funny, and it's really fun to play, and we're just tweaking the balance, and it's a really great, and it's also designed by our 9-year-old son. When he was 9, he designed it. And it's great for him to see his game come out and see the response to the game. Adult Swim's publishing it. And it's like that game was made to show him that how powerful design is. It was made for that purpose. It wasn't made because I wanted to make like the best game in the world. I want to make a really good game with his idea so he can see how important it is that great design can do this. They can put a team together and make your game.
You must be very proud. That's amazing. I mean, we were talking just before this session started about how young you got into programming and, you know, working in a military capacity at 14, was it?
15.
15?
I think, yeah.
I mean, yeah, much older than 14.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Way older.
But you had a lot of great opportunities, and, you know, your son has some amazing opportunities, especially given his parents. But what do you think about the opportunities for people coming up these days in order, you know, to get into the industry, to find that spark?
Well, I mean, it's easier than ever to start making games. I mean, people can start making games tonight if they wanted to. It's not difficult, but it takes time and effort, focus, and discipline to keep learning, because it's a new thing. You know, you're learning a new thing, but you can actually get results immediately, and you can learn something that is really interesting and different, and then you can start working with a team. There are, you know, people graduating from programs all the time, and they're going into the industry, you know, and there are just more and more companies popping up and more games coming up. And, you know, you just have to make really good stuff, and it takes a while to get to the point where you are making really good stuff. But, you know, a lot of people want to get out there and make stuff, and I say don't wait until you get to college. Do it when you're, you know, it's in secondary school or whatever. But yeah, there's tons of room for everybody. You know, the indie scene is super powerful, and that's where all the really new, cool ideas come from. Not so much the AAA segment, you know, because that's too risky with that much money that you're putting into a AAA game. But the triple I's, the high quality indie games, are doing really amazing things, and we love it. We pay attention to it all the time, and that's where we see lots of people going to game jams and learning how to do game design right, or programming or whatever. And those people are building up a portfolio by doing game jams and stuff, and with a portfolio, you get hired.
Yeah. So we just talked about making a game that isn't a shooter, and obviously with Monkey Stone, you're making portable stuff, and with Loot Drop, with Brando, you're making social games and just other things. And I think it's fair to say a lot of people were quite surprised when John Romero, the creator of Doom, started doing this. What drew you to those experiments and to the idea of finding other things?
I'd say, like, before making the shooter, before Wolfenstein, which I think was game number 88, I'd made a lot of different kinds of games, like Mario-style games, side scrollers. Then there's these shooters. Commander Keen or Dangerous Dave even before that. And then there's the shooter era. And then after that was wireless. You know, I got into wireless stuff and started doing mobile games before the iPhone ever came out. And that was really blowing up at that time. And then I went and I made a Gauntlet, and then I co-founded an MMO studio, and then I worked on an MMO for 4 years. And that's a whole different segment than everything else. It's huge. It's lots of money. Had a 100-person team working every day for 4 years on the game. It never released. You know, it's the MMOs are hard to launch. And then, you know, shifted over to social right after that. So it's one just shift after shift after shift, following the market or following something new and interesting. Because that's why I'm in the industry still. If I was doing the same things I was doing, 20 years ago, I'd hate life. I think I wouldn't even be in the game industry if I was doing the same thing. So I'm always interested in whatever's new and next.
And that inherent interest in creativity and doing new things, does it surprise you when people are surprised that you're doing things other than continually remaking Doom for your entire career?
Oh yeah. The funny thing is when I made a sequel, that was the last thing, like back in those days. So it was like Doom 2, move on, and then Quake. but yeah, people, some people will ask me questions about id. I'm like, I haven't worked on it in 20 years, so I can't really say much about it. But if people look up my entry on mobygames.com, which is like IMDb for game designers or game programmers, then they can see, I have like 100-something games on my credits. And there's probably about 50 more games that aren't on the credits because I never released them. I tell people that was only like a certain period of time where I worked on shooters only, since then I've worked on, a couple different variations of shooters, and I'm just interested in just different things, I don't like doing the same thing all the time.
How do you move on from 4 years of your life for 100 people working on a project that you believe in, you're passionate about, that then doesn't come to fruition?
Well, it was really tough. It was, it was a really, it's a massive decision to have to stop work on a game that it was an important game too. I was making an educational MMO for kids with stealth math learning in it. And we had a huge advisory board that was from math educational all around the world that saw the representations of skills that no one had ever seen before because everyone had seen stuff in books. And so it was a really big deal to stop making that game because that was really the future. We were hoping like this whole intersection of education and games was going to happen with this MMO. And so it wasn't a fun time, and probably for almost a year I didn't work on anything. I basically stopped working on that game, and I didn't do anything for almost a year other than try to get the company into doing social, because social was really heating up with Zynga and in the market. And they decided after about half a year that they weren't going to get into social. The board of directors didn't want to get into it. So then I basically worked with Brenda, and she was at a little social game company in San Francisco, and I went to consult and basically made a game in almost 3 months, and it was just hugely popular. Within 6 months we had 25 million people every month playing the game, and it was a completely different design than anything I'd ever made. So it was called Ravenwood Fair, and people just loved the game.
Was it pleasant to sort of return to that short turnaround for a game?
It was cool, and the team was really small. I mean, with everybody, it was 12 people on that team, and that was like, I had to put together an art team. I already had 4 programmers, and I had to like start building up the art team and get a producer and all that stuff, all within 2 months and 3 weeks. And there was just a ton of drama happening during the entire thing as well. But it was really fun to design something for a totally different market and then have it come out and be successful.
So going back to id as it is today, what's it like to have another studio sort of take your baby and take it in another direction, or?
Well, I think they've done a really great job. Todd Howard's a great designer, and I think that having Bethesda behind id has made it a better company. And with the money that ZeniMax has, they stuck with Doom to the end, which was, I'm sure it was a hard thing to do because that was game was rebooted 4 times, but it turned out great. And I think that it's proven itself to continue going forward, and it wasn't just okay, we're going to get it done and shut down. I think that they have faith in the team that's in there, so I feel good that it's still going.
Well, and a lot of reviews, including my review of that game, talked about how it feels like it harks back to the first Doom, the first 2 Dooms, and the idea of that speed and just the excitement of running around an environment, killing everything in virtual environments.
Yeah.
And was it exciting? Well, was it exciting that there's kind of a loop almost being closed or created at least? And why do you think people like the idea? I guess I'm not trying to do the nostalgia question again, but the idea of going back to that kind of fast gameplay, that purer gameplay, I guess.
Well, I think because there aren't games like that. Yeah. Everything is kind of slowed down with the controller, and going back to that was a differentiator, right? Like you gotta, when you come out with a game, you want it to be new and different. And going back to a gameplay that's tried and true that people loved, if that works today, then you've differentiated yourself. And with the extreme kills, they've added a differentiator on top of it. So I think it just worked. It's like, I remember how cool this was, and it looks insane. It's great, and the extreme kills that you don't have to do are an added bonus for people that like to do that. So I think it was a super smart decision.
So going back to Ion Storm, Daikatana, Anachronics, but particularly Daikatana, how do you look back at that time now and the game itself?
Well, it was like a nightmare situation. It was not a fun time. I learned a ton from it. It was, let's say, I started the company in '96, and then the Dallas office closed in 2001, so it was like 4.5 years, I think. And then the company kept on going till, I think, 2005 because of Deus Ex. So in all, because I brought Warren into the company, the whole company ended up being super profitable for IDOS. And without it, it would have been, not as profitable. Daikatana actually didn't make money beyond what it cost to make the game, but it wasn't like a burning hole in the ground or anything. But it was like, I don't look at it as, oh, that was a really great time. It was very hard to go through that time period just because I was dealing with so much stuff. It was crazy, and it shouldn't have happened. And it's like the decisions that you make at the beginning of a company or a game magnify over time. And so you have to make sure you're making the right decisions. I made really bad decisions at the beginning, and it was awful. So I still have lots of fan mail coming in for Daikatana, like all the time. There are people that love that game, and there are still deathmatch servers running, and the source code has been fixed. Like all the bugs are out of it. It's at version 1.3, and it's on all platforms and stuff. And that's cool because there's a diehard group of people that love that game, and they saw what I was trying to get at, even though I didn't actually make it hands-on myself. I did have to correct a lot of levels, but that wasn't a game I made. It was a game I kind of directed with a huge team of people that had never made a game in their life before. So it was hard to get through, but it was good enough to release at least, and it made it at least the money that it cost to build it. But I have never replicated that issue. I've never replicated what I did there again. So it was failure leads to success.
Yeah, you learned the lesson. But you are then, it sounds like you are still very proud of Daikatana as a creation.
Yeah, I mean, it could have turned out much better. I kind of look at the whole thing as just like, well, that whole thing, the value of that is just I learned a bunch. Not like, oh, I made a really great game. I learned a bunch from that. That's the value of it.
Okay. So, you helped, well, you defined a whole genre, the first-person shooter with Doom. What's your, I mean, obviously you've spoken about the idea of things getting slower with controllers, but what's your opinion of the genre as it stands today? And is there anything you think, is there any kind of area where you think we're going wrong?
Not really. I mean, the fact that there's such variety in the first-person shooter is amazing, and I think that it bodes very well for the future of that genre. There's so many different ways that the shooter has evolved. When you look at a game like Super Hot, that's so different than everything else. Or you look at the whole Red Storm, Rainbow Six and Ghost Recon and Splinter Cell, all those games are amazing. They totally took shooters in a totally different direction. Gears of War, totally different direction. And everybody's done something different and has forged different paths, and people continue to do that. So I don't think that there's any thinking that like, oh, we're done now. Like there's nothing left in shooters. There's always something new to do. It just depends on, where's it going to go? Is it going to go into a Call of Duty, or is that cool idea going to go into a Super Hot, smaller game? But they're going to keep on, the cool ideas are going to keep on coming out. And who knows, there may be a shooter design out there that just resurrects the whole thing and pulls it into an obvious path, the way that, say, Half-Life 2 did when it came out, and went, guess what? Gravity gun, brand new system, physics system in the game, brand new weapon that absolutely deserves to be there, and is not just a crazy bolt-on thing. There's companies like Valve or even indies can come up with something that becomes the foundation.
So we can't talk about Black Room in detail, but dancing around that, why did you decide to return to the FPS genre?
Well, so when I make a game, I always want to do something that's new and innovative and different. And I thought that with Black Room, I came up with an idea that I'd never seen before, worked really well with the shooter genre, and I think people would really love it. And it capitalized on all the things I love about shooters, from modding to the ability to surprise people and the ability to go on like a roller coaster ride through a game. And the fiction around that game supported all of the things I love about shooters and let me do things that no other shooter's done. So that's why, because the design is right for something no one's seen before, but loves to play this kind of a game.
And despite your kind of sort of magpie interest in genres and ideas and mechanics, does it feel somehow comforting to be in the FPS sofa again?
Yeah, I mean, it's not like it's different, and it's not like Alien, obviously, but it's still like, it's a challenge. It's still a challenge because, the competition is out there. Even if the game is different, a single player campaign game is kind of rare for shooters now. So I feel like that's a good differentiator and something I really love to do. So I just kind of know there is a challenge. There's challenges there. There's the industry as it is right now, and I need to make sure that I'm making something that is the next step out, step beyond where I'm kind of aiming.
And with the idea of competition in mind, how does it feel to be sort of re-entering this genre that you helped create, whilst there is a version of what you created out there that's been, so lauded?
Well, it's pretty cool. Like esports started. I'd say they started with Doom. Because there were, I guess first-person esports. Esports actually started back in the arcade era because people were getting paid to win arcade tournaments and stuff. So this is like early 80s stuff. But Doom kind of brought it back again after the arcades died. Doom brought it back, and there were tournaments happening with Doom, and then competitive tournaments. And then when Quake came out, that's when esports really started, and Quake was the esports game. Quake 1, then Quake 2, then Quake 3, and then Counter-Strike. And so, and now it's League of Legends, and then Overwatch. And so esports is here to stay, and everyone's trying to figure out, what is the game? Does the game always change? Because it has. The esports game has always changed, but can there be a football or a soccer or whatever that doesn't change? And I think that's going to be very tough to do. That was something that was kind of attempted with a game called Severity that I had announced a long time ago. The idea was to create this evergreen rule set that wasn't going to change but was highly competitive. But it's hard to, back then it was really hard to convince sponsors to raise the money to pay for that thing, because the game was always free. Like, we'll just use League of Legends or whatever, like there's no reason to pay to make a game to do this. But so far, so good. Everybody has adopted whatever the latest game is that everyone finds competitive and interesting, and maybe that's the way it has to be in the gaming industry versus baseball and all that, basketball and stuff. But it is cool to see that the esports has really taken off with Activision's involvement, creating a whole league, and everybody else, sponsors jumping in, and so it's the next level, I think, for games as sports.
So you also you're kind of known for, along with John Carmack, you're known for pushing technical boundaries. Doom is famous for getting a lot more performance out of systems than anyone had done. And now that bar is a lot higher. Do you feel a weight of expectation for that reputation, and do you feel confident with Black Room going into 2016 or whenever 2016 market? Presumably not this year.
So tech-wise, technology's mostly kind of done and solved right now. The only frontier in tech that's happening right now is AR and VR, because when you look at the consoles and the future, or no future for consoles, we're looking at smartphones or consoles, And so technology is the engines. People have standardized on engines. And if in some really big companies, they're creating their own engine, but those engines, like you can look at Unreal 4 and look at another proprietary engine, and they're so similar that it doesn't matter really. So the tech is already looking great. That's not the issue. The issue is really, it's all about design now. So I'm not worried that the engine that I use won't be super fast and the game won't take advantage of that and be optimized for it. And it's going to look really great. That's not the problem. It's all about the design of the game. Like, I know the tech is going to look great. It's the design now. So there's not really a foreseeable graphical technology frontier that we're looking at on PCs and consoles. That's beyond what everyone's looking at right now. It's really VR is where all the new stuff is happening.
And on the topic of VR then, a lot of the early kind of discussions about it were that traditional first-person shooters couldn't work in it. We've kind of made some baby steps towards maybe disproving that, but generally there's a consensus that maybe you couldn't just play Doom or Counter-Strike in it without a sick bag. And I've tried on DK1 to play Counter-Strike, and it was one of the worst experiences of my life. But how does it feel to have that not negativity, but those doubts about a new technology, which could be a new standard, and potentially this beloved genre losing its way? Or does it even matter? Can it just evolve?
Well, I think that VR definitely is going to be evolving, but may not be the best technology for games. I think there's going to be an amazing technology outside of games in a lot of different ways. And in games, there will be things that are great for VR that don't involve movement, fast movement. AR is a different story. AR absolutely is a great path forward. It's making lots of money. VR hasn't made a dime. So there's a reason why VR should be going in a certain direction. And AR absolutely is good for a lot of things other than games, but it's already proven itself as a really great visualization method for games. So, the industry is always pushing forward. It's hard to think of a future where everyone's wearing goggles to play games. Traditionally, anything that you put onto that you add to a computer, you don't get over 10% market penetration. So mouse and keyboard are standard, and so is the monitor. Until that's why Microsoft was packaging Kinect in with the Xbox One, because if you didn't pack it in, they're not going to have it, and you can't depend on it. And market penetration would still be really low. So you're at 100% if you're packing it in. So until they start packing in HoloLenses or whatever the AR tech is, you're still going to have a really low penetration, especially if it's expensive. So, there's still a lot of experimentation happening there, but the whole history of the industry is it needs to be included in computers for it to actually reach massive market potential.
And then the last question, and we're going to throw it open to the floor after this, but how do you feel about the next phase of your career that's coming up? What are you hoping is going to happen over the next few years?
Well, we're living in Ireland, so that's a huge change. Wow. So we moved there a year ago, and that's when we started our next chapter, kind of, and we've been preparing for a year to start getting going on some really cool projects. And so that's our focus, is being in Ireland, traveling through Europe, and meeting people and speaking and going to conventions and game jams and all that stuff, because we've done that for a long time in the U.S. and we're done with that. So now we're doing it here, and that's our next chapter is going forward in Europe, really, and seeing what we can do to help the game industry over here.
Awesome. John, thank you very much for your time. It's been lovely chatting.
Yeah, thanks.
So, do we have any questions in the audience for John? We've got about 15 minutes, I think. Hey, so we've got a mic as well, have we? Yeah, brilliant, thank you.
Can I ask, what do you think currently in first-person shooters, what is the most exciting game what's out there at the moment?
Probably Doom.
Probably Doom.
You know, they did a great job. It's you know, they keep on releasing these new DLCs and the super high-res versions of it, and you know, they're really pushing it to prep for the next thing that they're going to do. But it's cool that they're using Doom to do that. So I just really like what they've been doing with it.
As you said that, like, virtual reality is becoming more of a common thing. When it gets to the point where we're getting stuff like with tracking, where you can physically move on like a wheel's rotation, that looks like they've already been prototyping with it. Do you reckon that people who are of an unhealthy stature, do you feel they're going to feel obsolete because they are not physically capable of being able to play for prolonged times?
You know, it really depends on what you're going to do in virtual reality. There's some really cool videos that I saw that show going to like retirement homes and putting VR headsets on people in retirement homes, and they're just having the time of their life. They're just getting to go places that they can't go anymore, and that's really amazing to see that. So you know, they're not making these people move in ways that they all they have to do is move their head around. Really, it's like here's a kind of a 360-degree movie on rails that they get to experience in VR. And that's one really cool application of it. And so I think that there are a lot of ways that VR can be used, whether you're doing some physical input into it or moving around in a physical space or just sitting in a cockpit of something. I think we're just going to see all kinds of stuff. So it's not limited to just game stuff. And even in games, there's a lot of ways that you can do it that doesn't involve a lot of movement.
Because I'm not sure if you've seen like a film, it's called Gamer, and where they replicate that is they have a full room dedicated just to being the person as a controller. So then their movement is then replicated into the game of the controller of the person they're controlling. So I was wondering, like, say if a FIFA player wanted to play FIFA and play football in the virtual reality, but because they're like, say, obese, for example, they then won't be able to physically play the game anymore.
Yeah, I mean, that's there's some problems, obviously. There's a lot of issues with VR in lots of different ways, but I think people are going to figure out what are the best ways to use it.
Thank you.
How would you sort of get into the industry now as a game programmer? Because I've heard a lot about game designers.
Oh yeah.
Rather than programmers.
Getting into the industry as a programmer, well, you need to have a portfolio. And if you want to be a game programmer, you should have a portfolio of games that you've made. And it doesn't matter how great they are, just the fact that you've programmed games that are, you know, they have a start and an end. You know, they sit there and they play, and you can see that you've created something, and you have at least 12 of them, you know, on a screen, on a page. Even if you're not going to be a designer in the industry and you want to be a programmer on a team, at least make some stuff that people can look at and maybe is in the interest areas that you hope to explore on a game team. So, you know, if you love like programming splines, like come up with something really simple that uses splines, and that demo that you make, whether it's a little game or a graphical demo, uses splines, and they'll be impressed to see that you're doing that exploring that area. And there are a ton of programming jobs out there, and just keep on making stuff and putting it on your portfolio and letting people see either videos or downloading executables to test it or just playing it on the web. But it's it's really important to just get your stuff on the net and start sending out your resume as much as possible. And if you feel like you're good at design and you've made a game that you think is cool, put it into an indie contest, Indiecade or IGF, or there's a Ludicious. There's a whole bunch of them out there. And if you get nominated, you get lots of press. And if you win, you get even more press. And those things are huge bonus points on a resume to say that you were a finalist for anything. So just make stuff and put it out on the internet.
All right. Cheers.
Hi. So basically, my question is, what do you think about how the internet has allowed people from around the world to join together to make games, and send each other work and work together over the net?
It's great, especially when you have cloud services all over the place that can host your code repositories, or your project repositories. We use Assembla all the time. It has ticketing and it has the SVN or Perforce or GitHub, whatever you want. And it's great because we can work with people in California and they're doing our music or whatever, and they're just checking in the newest files, and we can see them when they come in and put them in the game. And it's great. They're in a different time zone, so they're getting stuff done while we're sleeping. So when you are really global like that, you could have a game team working 24 hours a day if they're spread out all over the place. But it's worked out really well for us. I mean, we've outsourced to many countries, from China to India and Ukraine. With really nice workflow tools on the internet, it makes it even easier to deal with. And I think nowadays, more than ever, it's been great to work over the internet.
What advice would you give somebody over 18 who really wants to get into a specialized role in the game industry but doesn't know where to begin? Because from what I've been reading, all the most successful people seem to have started gaining experience and skills from an early age. But what about the people who are older than that? Are they doomed to be mediocre for the rest of their lives?
No, most people actually start in college. I've met so many people who didn't program anything until they got in college. So, and it's never too late. I mean, you can start a career at any time. I remember a long time ago, I was friends with a person who was a mechanic, and he really wanted to get into software development. And this was like during the time of Doom and Quake and stuff. And I told him it's not that hard, and just talked to him a little bit about getting into Windows programming, and that was probably in 96, 97, and he's been running his software company. It's not games, but he's been doing it since 97. He's been living off of and it's doing really, really well. He just decided to switch, and he was already, I think 30-something. It's just, if you want to do it, you're going to do it. You know that when you make up your mind, you're going to do the thing that you want to do, like everybody does. So you have to seriously make up your mind to do it, and you will find the answers to getting into learning, going down the path, and getting in the industry. You just need to network. You need to meet people. You can go to game jams. If you don't know anything, you can start meeting people at game jams or going to conventions, GDC, or all over Europe. There's go to GDC Europe or any other place and just get to meet people that make games. And if you know the thing that you want to do, they can probably tell you who to talk to, and that person will tell you how to get started. And it's not that hard because everything is on the internet now. You actually can learn everything at home at the speed that you want to learn it at, and get up to proficiency pretty quickly. It's just, do you want to do that? It's all about focus and determination and spending the time doing it.
Yes, it seems in this console generation, definitely compared to the last one, there's way more kind of direct remasters. Do you think that that's just because publishers have run out of ideas, or they're kind of just looking for a quick kind of bug? Because it seems at this point in the last console generation, we had way more new IPs than we do this time around.
Well, sometimes it's really business related. They have just acquired IP and they want to make money off of it. So sometimes you'll see a remaster like that through an emulation program that's running, on whatever the console is. And people are nostalgic for stuff, and that always sells. So you couple those two things together, like that's why they would buy the old IP. Maybe they put it out on emulation form on a platform, and then maybe they basically get funding to start making a new version of that IP. Look at Underworld and System Shock 3. Underworld 3, System Shock 3. Those are old IPs, and Other Side Entertainment got the funding to make new ones, and that's what they're doing. And they know that they can make the next version, the really cool next version. It's not like an old, tired retread of the previous games were already really, really cool. But they know that they can do the next version because they made the previous versions. Like the same people are doing it. But yeah, these happen in waves. You can't predict like why is this happening right now. It's just sometimes a big company is going to close and other people jump on it. Like when Midway shut down and there's all this IP that came from Atari and everywhere else, and somebody owns it and they're piecemealing it out, and some people raise money and then they start making new versions of the Spy Hunter or whatever, and like it's just business opportunity usually.
Hi, I love your stuff. This is a two-parter question. It's about Doom. I was wondering exactly, even by mid-95 standards, the walk speed of Doom guy is really fast in that game, and I was wondering your reasoning behind that. Why he's so fast?
Well, it was slower than Wolfenstein. Wolfenstein was the fastest game that we'd ever made, and Doom got a little bit slower, just because I think that it felt a little bit better in the technology that we had, the engine that we had written, but it felt really good. I mean, the speed felt great. When we make a character move in a game, that is one of the first and most important things that we can do as designers and coders, because the rest of the game depends on that speed, because the scale matters, the distance of hallways, the abilities that you have in the game, how big you make levels, all that stuff depends on that speed. So that's one of the first things that you have to nail down. And if you can jump, that's a very critical height, and it has to stay either fixed or within a variance depending on power-ups and stuff like that. So it was fast, even though it was slower than Wolfenstein. It was as fast as it felt right for that engine.
And secondly, why did Doom have such a heavy emphasis on secrets? Like, normally there's some Easter eggs in just a game, but with Doom, there's like tons of up to 5 secrets per level, and because of the limited health and ammo, on hard difficulties, you have to find these secret rooms or you die.
Well, the reason why secrets are in the game is really because of Super Mario Brothers. That was the game that really influenced us to start adding secrets to every single game that we made. So the Commander Keen games are packed full of secrets, tons of them. And then Wolfenstein, interestingly enough, it has secrets in it, but it didn't have as many as it should because John Carmack did not want to hack his engine and put a secret push wall in, because it would have ruined the beautiful code that he had written. It would have messed up. It would have been a hack, basically. And he needed to do this hack to make it work, because his level, or his engine wasn't designed to do this push wall thing. But we hammered on him it was probably about 3 months before he finally just put it in. And then we had to go through the whole game and start putting in these secrets. So there's not actually that many secrets in Wolfenstein because of that. But when we were making Doom, it was not under his control how many secrets we put in, because the abilities of the engine let us do whatever we wanted. And so it was like, absolutely, we have to have tons of secrets in here because it's super fun to find them. The difficulty of the games was basically, the way that we made the games was typically we played the game in ultraviolet mode. That's the only mode that mattered. We always played in that because we were really good at it, and everyone else would not be as good, and so we needed to just tone it down for normal and for easy mode. So we always played the game in ultraviolet, and we could finish those levels in ultraviolet. And we did not depend on secrets, actually. So we were really good. And as an example, like the par times that we put in those levels, I set all the par times on the levels, and that was always, times were always bumped way up. So if you look at Doom 2 level 1, I think the par time is 1 minute and 30 seconds or something like that, and I can finish the level in 5 seconds. And it's insane, right? But I can do that. I'm not going to kill anything, but I'm going to get out of that level in 5 seconds. But I had to massively round up because that's not how anyone else is playing the game. But yeah, we were balancing for hard mode, and then we just made the game easier in the other 2 modes. So if we can do it in hard mode, and we weren't the best players in the world, we were at that point because no one else was playing it, but we were good players, and we thought that the mode we were designing for would be a fun challenge, and for anyone that wanted the insane challenge, they got Nightmare.
Thank you.
How did you feel when you found out that Doom was going to be remade, and what did you expect from the creators who were going to remake it?
Well, first I didn't expect a remake. I expected a sequel, but it turns out that they were, Doom 3 and Doom 4, both remakes of Doom 1. But I thought it was great. I was like, well, it's been time. Doom came out in '93, and then Doom 2 doesn't count because that came out immediately the next year. But the next the next Doom, which was 3, came out 11 years later, and then the next Doom came out. What was it? Just this year? So it was another 11 years, 12 years. So kind of the Wolfenstein series also has this 11-year gap between each one of them. Interestingly enough, but I was like, all right, let's see it. I was hoping what are you gonna do? What's gonna be the next thing? And I expected a sequel. I expected something cool, but I guess, it made sense to. It's been so long that they needed to. There's a whole new generation of players. They probably need to understand what the game is about. Let's make it again. But this time, as good as the console can allow at this point. So I thought it was great. I always think it's great when they can make a new one. Quake Champions is happening right now, and there's going to be another Wolfenstein. They did an amazing job with the previous one, and I think that they've found out how to make really good sequels to those IPs that we created.
Great. Well, thanks everyone for coming along. John, thank you very much for your time.
Thank you very much.
And if we could give John a round of applause, please.